we are getting new reaction to President-elect Trump's handling of foreign policy issues from some of America's most respected leaders. Former Defense Secretary Robert Gates telling the Washington Post, quote, "There is some value, the president-elect's disruptive approach in the U.S. not being so reliably passive." Congressman Sean Duffy is one of the first members of Congress to support Donald Trump, and Larry Korb is a former Assistant Defense Secretary and a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. Congressman Duffy, I'll start with you first. This is sparking new concerns about the president-elect's policy on nuclear arms.
Listen, I think it's refreshing to a lot of people across America. You have Donald Trump responding to Putin, who was talking about strengthening his own nuclear arsenal. And the fact that America has been so passive over the last 8 years that has emboldened not just Russia but China. But back to Russia, you have Putin, who went to the Ukraine, to Crimea. Now he's in the Middle East for the first time since the end of the Cold War. Russia thinks that they can push us around. Donald Trump pushing back forcefully with his tweet says, listen, there's a new sheriff in the White House. He's going to be fully engaged in a way that says we are going to build up our own nuclear arsenal. We're going to modernize it and make sure that we can meet any threat that exists in the world, including that comes from Russia. I think is heartening and refreshing. And I think this is what Bob Gates is talking about. He's a little bit unpredictable, which I think gives him better negotiating power as he deals not just with Russia but the rest of the world.
Unpredictable, to say the least. I mean, Larry, everybody's trying to make sense of the order of events here. It's this tweet and this leader saying this. I mean, it did appear that Trump's response, his tweet was a response to Vladimir Putin, because it came in just a couple hours after we heard that pledge from Putin, saying he was pledged to enhance his country's nuclear forces. But then you heard Putin say, hey, there's nothing new here.
Well, there isn't. We have an arms agreement with Russia that says by 2018, both of us are going to be down to 1,550 nuclear weapons. In order to get that treaty ratified by the Senate, President Obama had to promise to modernize our nuclear forces. We have a $1 trillion modernization program already underway. And basically, if in fact you want to expand, that means you'd have to tear up all the arms treaties going back to, President Reagan. And again, when you put Bob Gates in with nuclear weapons, when I was in government working for President Reagan, he did not want Reagan to negotiate with Gorbachev about nuclear weapons. So when it comes to him, he doesn't have a great deal of credibility on this issue. And I think it's rather ironic that Congressman Duffy is saying that, because the person whose seat he took in the Congress, Melvin Laird, who I also work with, he was the one who said, we don't need nuclear superiority. What are you going to do with it? We need to put these funds into conventional weapons, and that's why he worked with President Nixon to get the first arms control agreement with the Soviets. I
mean, Congressman, when you look at Kellyanne Conway as campaign manager and now holds a chief position in his administration, Kellyanne Conway said this is effectively about posturing, trying to clarify some of Donald Trump's tweets. She said he's making the point that this is about nuclear proliferation in the face of rogue nations and regimes that are stockpiling weapons.
And then Donald Trump comes out and maybe pushes back on his own team and staff in kind of an odd way. But, back to Larry. Larry had a chance to work for Ronald Reagan, and everyone thought that Ronald Reagan was going to start the Third World War. He was too aggressive. He was a cowboy. But he understood that he could bring strength. With American strength, he would bring peace. Mm-hmm. And we all know, Sandra, that on the playground in America, bullies go after the weak guys, not the tough kid on the playground. With Donald Trump, a new transition from the last 8 years, that strength will bring peace to America. Larry saw that in the 80s. We can see that again in 2016.
Wow. Well, all right. We'll keep following it. Sorry, Larry, we've got to leave it there. Congressman Larry Korb, thanks for joining us tonight.